Hello, and welcome to Bunches of Shred. My name is Nathan Bunch, and today we're going to be taking a look at everything you need to know to get out on the trails confident and safely. The first thing you need to know when starting mountain biking is what is mountain biking? Mountain biking is being off-road on a bike on trails. Now there's a few different types or disciplines of mountain biking. There's downhill, which is going downhill mainly down a mountain or in what's called a bike park, which is a park specifically made for downhill biking. There's enduro, which is going up a mountain and down a mountain or across more rugged terrain. And then there's cross country, which is generally a little bit more mild of a trail, but is longer distance. So it's more of an endurance. Now, when you first start mountain biking, what you'll probably be doing is a mix of enduro and cross country, meaning you'll be doing some features to gain confidence and skills, but you'll also be doing more mild stuff to get used to your bike. Now this transitions perfectly into what is a mountain bike. So there's a few different types of mountain bikes you might see, but they can generally be broken into two categories: a hardtail or a full suspension. What we have here is my bike. This is a Norco Optic, and it is what's called a full suspension bike. Now what does that mean? A full suspension bike has 2 points of suspension on it. It has suspension in the front for this front wheel. This is called a fork. And it has suspension for the rear wheel. This is called a shock. Now, a hardtail is the other type of mountain bike. It looks very similar to this, but it doesn't have a shock in the back, meaning that the only suspension you're getting is on your front wheel. Your rear wheel will not have suspension in a hardtail. There are also different types within these segments, such as for full suspensions. This is more of a trail bike. You could have one that has super short travel, meaning the wheels move less with the suspension, and that's called a cross-country bike. You could have one that has a little bit more than this. That's called an enduro bike. Or you could have a bike that has a lot more suspension, and that's called a downhill bike. There's a lot of numbers that are thrown around when talking about suspension, but for a beginner rider, a trail bike or a cross-country bike or a hardtail are perfect starting points. If this is your first time riding a mountain bike, or your first time getting into the sport, I would highly suggest you go into a local bike shop and get your size. Not only will this make it more comfortable, but it'll also make it safer and easier for you as you ride your bike. Riding too small of a bike will make you feel compact, and riding too big of a bike will make it hard to control. So it's very important to get your size of a mountain bike. Since we're talking about bikes, let's go over components that you need to know or might need to know in the future. Now there will be another video talking about bike maintenance and going more in depth onto the parts of a mountain bike, but this is just a brief rundown so you know what you're riding. Starting at the front, obviously we have a wheel. I think everyone knows what a wheel is, but a wheel is made up of a few different parts. It's a rim, spokes, and a hub, and that goes for the front and the back. You have tires as well, which tires people can be very particular about. As you ride, you'll get to find out lots about tires, and we'll talk about that in another video. You also have brakes. Most mountain bikes today have disc brakes, which you can see here. You can tell it's a disc brake because it has this disc that they get their name from, right here on the wheel itself. The way that disc brake works is there is a caliper here that have pads that squeeze that rotor or disc and make your bike stop. If you have an old bike, it might have rim brakes, which would be up here and they would grab onto the side of your rim to slow you down. The same exact principle as a rotor. Moving up slightly, we have the fork. So as I talked about before, this is part of your suspension setup. So this part here, this gold part on my bike, moves up and down inside this lower part, which are called the lowers. and that provides suspension. That lets this tire come up and out of the way. Moving up a little bit further, we have the handlebars. So the handlebars are actually attached to the fork. There is a tube that comes up inside, and it comes all the way up. This top part here is the very top part of that tube. This is called the stem. It clamps onto that and allows you to turn your wheel. Of course, you have grips, and then these are brake levers. You have your shifter, and then if your bike has what's called a dropper post, which we'll get into in a second, your dropper lever will be over on your left side as you're on the bike. Moving down a little bit further, this purple piece here, this is called the frame. So your frame is made by whoever manufactures your bike. Like I said in the beginning, this is a Norco Optic. So moving down a little bit further, we talked about the shock a little bit before, but the shock is what allows the rear wheel to get out of the way. So how does that work? If the shock's all the way up here and the wheel's all the way back there, how does it get out of the way? So there's this piece here that's called a linkage. So this linkage works to allow the wheel to move up, and this comes down and pushes into the shock. You can think of your shock like one side of your fork. There's just one, but it works in the same principle. You can think of it like a spring. So this will compress down on the spring, and it'll want to pop back up. And it allows the wheel to come out of the way and then go back down to give you more suspension. Moving up a little bit further, we have the dropper post. So the dropper post moves your seat up and down. It drops out of the way. Right now it's down, but if I push this lever, it'll go up. Why would we want that? So in this configuration, this is perfect for pedaling. So you're getting more room from your butt to your feet, allowing you to pedal more efficiently. But when we're going down a hill or down steep terrain, we want the seat to come down and get out of the way. So that allows us to get the seat out of the way and to get our weight further back to be more secure when riding our bike across rough or steep terrain. Moving down again, we have cranks. So your cranks are what your pedals attach to here, and they are what transfer the power from your feet to the bike. So your cranks are the frontmost portion of what's called a drivetrain. So you can think of your bike's drivetrain like the drivetrain in your car. You have an engine and a transmission. Well, on a bike, you're the engine. You're the one providing the power, and your drivetrain is the transmission that gets your power to the wheels and to the ground. So your drivetrain is made up of a few different parts. So you have your crank, which we just talked about. Your crank is attached to your chain ring, which is this front ring down here. That goes to the chain, which goes back to all those gears in the back. Those gears in the back are called a cassette. And in order to get from one gear to another on your cassette, you use something called a derailleur. Now your derailleur is controlled by your shifter that's up front, and it goes up or down depending on the buttons you push up front. You might have a bike that has more than one gear on the front. Most mountain bikes now come with what's called a 1x, which is just like mine. It has one gear in the front and 11, 12, or 13 in the back. Some older models or some entry-level models still have 2 or 3 in the front and then 8 or 9 in the back. The reason why most manufacturers are going to 1x is because it's simpler, it's quieter when you're riding, your chain's not moving around as much, and it's easier to maintain. Let's talk about material really quick. So there's 2 main materials that bikes are made out of. When you walk into a bike shop, you'll see bikes that are made out of aluminum and bikes that are made out of carbon fiber. So aluminum bikes are generally a little bit more entry level. They might be a little bit more affordable because aluminum is more affordable to work with, but it's still a great choice. There's also carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is a more expensive choice, but it's lighter and it's stiffer, meaning that you'll get more direct power or more direct control out of your bike that's carbon fiber. Now, for an entry-level rider or someone that doesn't ride a ton, you might not even know a difference between a really good aluminum bike and a carbon fiber bike. Bikes today are amazing, so don't feel like you have to go spring for a carbon fiber bike to have fun. You can have just as much fun on an aluminum bike as a carbon fiber bike. Now, different components, as well as the bike frame, can be made from these different materials as well. For example, my handlebars and my cranks are both made out of carbon fiber. They provide different ride qualities, and so you can kind of experiment as you get to know your bike and get to know mountain biking on what you like. There are a couple more material choices that are more boutique or more customized, such as titanium or steel, but for the main point, it's generally going to be aluminum or carbon fiber. Let's talk about everyone's favorite subject, trail etiquette and safety. We're going to start with safety, because safety is always first. The most important thing out of this video, if you don't take anything else away from me, is buy a good helmet and wear it every time. I have here my POC helmet that I wear regularly. Now, you don't have to go all out and spend $500 on a helmet, but I would implore you not to cheap out. There's a symbol on this helmet right here that's called MIPS. Look for this symbol when buying a helmet. This is an independent standard that allows the helmet to move independently of your head in the event of a crash and helps reduce the effects of a concussion. Helmets save lives. And by wearing one at first, you might seem silly, but I can promise you, mountain bikers don't generally judge unless they see you not wearing a helmet. That is one of the things that will get you called out the fastest on the trails, is not having a helmet on when riding. It is so important. Even on a trail you know by heart, that might not be that difficult or that technical, always wear a helmet. Another piece of safety equipment is gloves. So gloves are not essential, but they serve two purposes. Number one is when you're riding and you get sweaty, you might lose grip here on the grips. So these provide a little bit more purchase because they don't get sweaty all the way through. Another thing is if you crash, it provides protection for your hands, so you're not getting all scraped up. Now, the last piece of safety equipment I'm going to show you are glasses. So glasses help protect things from getting into your eye, obviously, which might not seem like a big deal. But when you're going down a hill or a mountain and you get a bug or dust in your eye, it becomes a problem because you might not be able to stop immediately and your vision's blurred. So it can create a real hazard. These help prevent that. These ones I have specifically are photochromatic or transition lenses. So when it's bright and sunny like it is here today, they get dark, but when it's darker, they'll be completely clear. So I don't have to swap out glasses or lenses. They're really, really handy. Now there are other safety options out there as well, such as pads for your knees, elbows, and chest. If you feel more comfortable wearing those, absolutely go for it. More safety equipment is always better. Let's talk about trails and trail etiquette. So trails are categorized using a system that'll be familiar if you've ever skied or snowboarded. There's greens, there's blues, there's blacks, and there's double blacks. And they're in that order for difficulty. So green's the easiest and double black is the hardest. Always ride within your comfort area. Never try to push yourself something you're not comfortable with. The general rule is to look before you ride. So if there's something, for example, like these rocks behind me that you want to ride, go ahead and set your bike against a tree and go walk it. Take a look at it. No one's going to think lower of you for doing that. It's common practice in the mountain biking community, if you've never ridden something, to take a look first. It's best practice. Now, the trail rating I talked about before is actually pretty subjective. So, for example, I'm recording this here in Davidson, North Carolina, and a black trail here isn't going to be as hard as a black trail in the Pisgah National Forest a couple hours to the west of me right now. You have to know your area, and you have to feel it out. If you're new to an area, I was just starting out the easiest and progressing your way up, even if you know what you're doing. You don't know what might be around a corner that you might not be able to do, or might take you off guard. Always look before you jump, and make sure that what you're doing is within your skill and your comfort level. You might technically be able to do something, but you might be having an off day, you might be tired from riding a lot before, or you might not just be feeling it that day. Totally okay to not do something if you're not comfortable with. There's a couple different types of trails that you will see. There's single track, which is generally what we're talking about when talking about mountain bike trails. We're talking about single track, which is one skinny trail through a forest. And there's double track, which is generally when we're climbing or a connector between two other trail systems. It's called a fire road sometimes, and it's generally not what we're out riding for, but a necessary evil. When talking about trails, there are two phrases you'll hear a lot: flowy and techy or technical. Flowy is like it sounds. Flowy is something that's pretty smooth, you can go really fast on, there's not a lot of bumps, rocks, or roots. Technical is what that is. Technical is there's a lot of rocks, a lot of roots, a lot of features that you're not going to go as fast on, but you're going to have to really work and think to get around. As you ride, you'll find out what you like more. Most people like a mix. I like the technical stuff like what's behind me right here. I really enjoy it here and out in western North Carolina and Pisgah National Forest. I also like flowy stuff. Getting to ride flowy stuff and go really fast is awesome. Find what you like and find trail systems that you like. For the last part about trails, I'm going to give you a charge to go help out. Trails like this one that I'm at in Fisher Farms in Davidson, North Carolina are all volunteer built. Find your local trail group. Go help out on work days and go help build the trails you ride. There's no better feeling than going and riding something that you know you had a part in, that you know your sweat's here on the ground. Not only will you feel more proud for yourself, you'll also be able to give others the experience that you've had riding. I hope you guys have learned a lot from this video. And if you haven't, let me know down in the comments what I should add next time. Mountain biking is so much fun. And the reason why I'm making this video is because it was someone on YouTube making videos that got me interested and got me out on a bike. If you have any questions about mountain biking, leave them in the comments too. I'll try to answer them as they come in, and I'll try to help you out. This is a super fun, very inclusive sport. And as you find your community that's local to you, you'll be able to find people that support you and uplift you and will help make you a better rider and a better person. The great thing about mountain biking is it's just like life. You got to work hard to get the reward. And there's no better feeling than hitting those milestones that you want to hit on a bike after putting in all that hard work. Thank you so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you out on the trails.